I am here tonight with my special sword to slay a zombie. I find zombies to be gross and disgusting. They really scare me bad. In popular TV shows and movies, they're basically dead, decaying humans that are coming to kill and eat you and me. Even worse than zombies, I find this to be even scarier, which is climate change. Over 200 years ago, with the Industrial Revolution, we've been burning primarily coal, oil, and gasoline for energy use. When we burn these fuels, carbon dioxide is released. Science tells us that since 1880, we've increased the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere by 40%. Basic physics tells us that carbon dioxide traps the Earth's heat. Similar to when my niece and nephew wear their favorite Snuggie blanket on a cold winter day to trap their body heat, to keep them warm. Increasing carbon dioxide in our atmosphere by 40% is like throwing an extra blanket over our planet, or like when I threw an extra blanket over my niece and nephew. By the way, has anybody here, speaking of blankets, gone to sleep and then wake up in the middle of the night overheated because you were sleeping underneath too many blankets? Yeah. Well, according to NASA, this is what we've done to the Earth over the past 130 years. This video that I'm going to show you shows the temperature change from 1884 to 2013. The blue shows temperatures below normal, about a couple degrees below normal. Red will show you a couple degrees above normal. And I'm going to pause so you get the full effect of this video. At the bottom it shows the year, 1884, and it's going to go to 2013. Again, this is a video put together by NASA and showing precise global temperature measurements. This is how the Earth has changed from 1884 to today. Just like a zombie coming after us, global temperatures have been steadily increasing over our lifetime. Since 1970, global temperatures have been steadily jumping up each decade. Even more, temperature measurements have been meticulously documented since 1880. And so because of that, we know that 2013, last year, was the fourth warmest year on record, tied with 2003. The hottest year on record since 1880 was 2001, followed by 2005, and 1998 was number 3. Only one year in the 20th century was hotter than 2013, which was 1998. What really jumps out at me on this chart is that 12 of the 13 years on record, hottest years on record, happened in the 21st century, since 1998. But yet, I've heard from a couple of my Toastmasters a zombie myth. Basically this, quote, "The Earth has not warmed since 1998. Who's heard that argument before? After my last Toastmaster speech in April, I actually had a fellow Toastmaster pretty much get right in my face with that statement in a hostile way that made me feel like I was being attacked by a zombie. Unfortunately, I did not have my special sword to defend myself that night. But however, I now have this wonderful tool from a friend of mine, Dr. Marshall Shepard. He's a climate scientist from the University of Georgia, and he has a wonderful TED Talk that's on YouTube called Slaying the Zombies of Climate Science. In this video, he talks about zombie theories. Now, what are zombie theories? Well, according to Dr. Shepard, they are one of those theories that scientists have refuted or disproven time and time again, but yet it lives on in the blogs, radio stations, and tweets. So, Where does this myth originate, that the Earth has not warmed since 1998? Well, people who reject the science of human-caused climate change will point to 1998, this spot right over in here, and they'll draw a line to 2014. And they'll say, see, it hasn't really warmed much in the past 16 years. And I can see that logic. I can see how they come up with that. The problem is that for climate scientists, they see a rate of linear growth since 1970 over the past 40 years. And climate scientists actually look at long-term global trends of 30 to 100 years to see if climate change is real. Climate scientists actually use the term cherry picking for those who point to a flatter growth since 1998. Now, what is cherry picking? Well, scientists define it as the act of pointing to individual data that seems to confirm a particular position while ignoring a significant portion of related data that may contradict that position. An example of cherry picking would be this. Who is this gentleman?
Stan the man.
Stan Musial, big Cardinal Gray player. Jack Batag, I love your stories. When you were growing up as a child and meeting Stan Musial, I want all of us to imagine for a moment, especially the baseball fans in the room, if someone in St. Louis went around saying that Stan Musial does not belong in the Hall of Fame because the last 5 years of his career, he hit kind of a mediocre, kind of a major league average of 280. While they ignore the fact over his 22-year career, he hit an outstanding and amazing batting average of 331. Nobody in St. Louis, especially myself, would appreciate someone cherry-picking Stan Musial stats, nor should we cherry-pick climate stats. If you talk to climate scientists, such as Dr. Marshall Shepard, or climate scientists that I've met, they will tell you that, yes, the climate has warmed before, but what they're worried about is the rate of change. This is the graph that I got in an email from Dr. Marshall Shepard about a year ago, and it shows the change over the past 10,000 years. Over 10,000 years ago, there was a 1 degree of warming over a period of 1,800 years, and there wasn't much change over 4,000 years. The temperature kind of plateaued. Then the temperature dropped about 1.3 degrees over 5,000 years. Then the temperature went in a deep uphill spike over the past 100 years. So what scientists are worried about is that the current rate of warming is now happening in decades in what used to happen in thousands of years. And Tom Terrific, I actually wrote out some statistics in a back of an envelope. We did some calculations. And basically, the current rate of change is 23 times faster than when the Earth warmed a similar amount about 10,000 years ago. So scientists are very worried about the rate of change, just as I am scared of zombies, since they are so mean, gross, hard to kill, and they're coming after us, it seems like. But I may have this fear of zombies, but with this sword, I can overcome this fear and slay them. Just like I am so happy and merry, we can slay this myth. There has been no warming since 1998. The best weapon I know to slay this myth, besides this sword, is this article in Scientific American that I found earlier this month that says that 2014 is on track to be the hottest year on record, even hotter than other hot benchmark years, such as 2010, 2005, or 1998. So, with this sword, we can now here slay this myth that the Earth has not warmed since 1998. We can first do this by, number one, the 10 warmest years on record have all basically occurred since 1998, and 3 years in particular, 2005, 2010, and now 2014, are now warmer years than 1998. Number two, During the course of our lifetime, since 1970, global temperatures, average global surface temperatures have been jumping up each decade. And number 3, 16 years is too short of a period to say that it's not warming. Since climate change, or climate statistics, are actually compiled over at least a 30-year time period. As you talked about before, nobody, especially myself, since I'm a big baseball fan, or Jack Batag, or other big fans in this room, nobody would be happy with somebody cherry-picking Stan Musial's stats, nor should we cherry-picking climate stats. Since earlier we talked about climate change has been happening at a higher growth rate, higher linear growth rate. So, these zombies may give me nightmares, but because of Dr. Marshall Shepard and his video, Slaying the Zombies of Climate Science, and my sword, we can now victoriously slay this myth that the Earth has not warmed since 1998, and I will now lay down my swords and see if you have any questions for me. So, Susan, if you can reset the timer at 3 minutes there. Jenny, question for me.
Ask 2 questions.
Sure.
Back to back.
Okay.
You don't have to call me again.
Okay.
First question, why was last winter so freaking cold? Question number 2, what do we do if we know that the temperature on Mars is also rising at the same rate as that on Earth?
I don't have an answer for you on Mars. I'll have to get back to you on the Mars question. That's a really good one there. But there's I'm going to recommend a really good website for you. I recommend that you write this down, Jenny. It's called skepticalscience.org. And that's because they will answer that question. I have not looked in the Mars question, but I was prepared for this question. It's cold outside, so why? So global warming is not real. That's kind of a common one that I get all the time. This is a really interesting picture that we have right here. This is where we're at. So these were the temperatures actually below normal. But while it was so cold here in St. Louis, Alaska, this was actually from November here, Alaska had temperatures way above normal. And Siberia, Alaska, and even Africa had temperatures above normal. So the thing with climate change, you have to look globally and long term, not just outside your window. And with you in mind, I also took this picture here, which shows that yes, we were cold here last winter, but as we were cold here in St. Louis, the Russian Far East saw an extremely warm winter, which is that area over in this part of the graph. France, Spain, Austria, and Switzerland recorded one of the top 5 warmest Januaries on record. China had its 2nd warmest January ever recorded. Much of southern Africa experienced record warmth for January. Australia suffered through record-breaking heat for January. And Alaska had record high temperatures. One town in Alaska had temperatures up to 62 degrees. So keep in mind that it may be cold outside your window, but other parts of the world might have temperatures way above normal. So sometimes we get, and this is actually a picture that I got from Tom Terrific's website. He actually commented about this in February. Same thing in February. It was below normal we have, but many parts of the world it was actually above normal. So again, with climate change, you have to look at long term and globally. So to look out your window and say, man, it's snowing, therefore climate change is not real, is kind of like looking out the horizon and saying, I can see the horizon, therefore the earth is flat. How much time do I have left here, Susan?
Like
10
10 seconds.
seconds. Okay, I better wrap it up with that one then. I appreciate your time and this opportunity to talk to you about climate change here this evening.
They're happy about that.
Thank you, Brian. That was really a great talk.